When Alan Badger walked into his father's farmhouse, he never imagined the nightmare he would encounter. There, on the bedroom floor, lay his father, Lowell Badger, brutally murdered. What actually happened in that secluded home? Who would want to harm a kind, elderly man in his own sanctuary? Lowell R. Badger was an 85-year-old retired farmer living in a rural area near Merom, Sullivan County, Indiana. He was a beloved figure in his community, deeply involved in his local church, Kingsley Memorial United Methodist Church, where he held various leadership roles. Known for his active lifestyle and love for his family, Lowell was the father of 4, grandfather of 6, and great-grandfather of 4, with another great-grandchild on the way at the time of his death. His family and friends described him as a kind and gentle man who enjoyed socializing, attending community events, and spending time with his loved ones. On the evening of December 7th, 2012, Lowell had just returned home from an event at the Indiana State Fair, where he watched his grandchildren show cattle at the Hoosier Beef Congress. This was a regular activity for him, reflecting his continued interest in farming and community life even in his later years. After spending the evening with his family, he returned to his secluded farmhouse, located in a quiet, rural part of Sullivan County. The next morning, December 8th, 2012, Lowell's son went to visit him, only to make a shocking discovery. He found his father lying dead on the bedroom floor, having been shot to death. The scene was unsettling. Lowell had been murdered during what appeared to be a burglary. This tragic event marked the beginning of what would become a long and arduous investigation by the Indiana State Police to identify the individuals responsible. The investigation, however, was fraught with challenges from the start. Investigators speculated that Lowell had been killed sometime between the evening of December 7th and the morning of December 8th. The exact time of the crime was difficult to pin down, adding to the complexity of the case. The police believed that the burglars targeted Lowell's home because of its isolated location, making it a relatively easy target for a robbery without attracting immediate attention. The crime scene offered few clues. The primary pieces of evidence were the stolen items, a gray safe and a Sony television, both of which were likely taken by the perpetrators in the hopes of obtaining valuable items. However, neither the safe nor the television was immediately recovered, leaving investigators with minimal physical evidence to work with. Forensic analysis at the scene did not yield any conclusive results, and there were no immediate suspects. Despite these setbacks, the Indiana State Police were determined to solve the case. Over the following months, investigators conducted hundreds of interviews with local residents, acquaintances of Lowell, and anyone who might have had information about the crime. These interviews often yielded little more than speculation, but each piece of information was meticulously documented as part of the broader investigation. As time passed, the lack of progress began to weigh heavily on both the investigators and the community. Sullivan County, a tight-knit rural area, had rarely seen such a violent crime, and the unsolved murder of a respected community member like Lowell Badger created an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The family, particularly Lowell's son, who had found his father's body, continued to appeal to the public for any information that might lead to an arrest. In an effort to break the case, the family, in collaboration with the police, offered a $35,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest and conviction of those responsible. This reward was widely publicized, with local media and law enforcement agencies making repeated calls to the public to come forward with any tips. Despite these efforts, significant leads remained elusive. The investigation also involved extensive searches of the surrounding areas. Police utilized various methods, including aerial surveys, foot patrols, and even scuba diving in nearby bodies of water, hoping to find the missing items or other evidence that could provide a breakthrough. Unfortunately, these searches yielded no conclusive results. As the years passed, the case gradually went cold. Investigators continued to revisit the case periodically, hoping that new technology or fresh information might shed light on what had happened. However, without new leads, the case remained unsolved for over a decade. The community's sense of unease lingered, and the Badger family continued to seek justice, holding on to hope that one day the truth would be revealed. During this period, rumors and theories circulated within the community and among those who followed the case. Some speculated that the crime might have been committed by individuals passing through the area, while others wondered if it could have been someone with a personal vendetta against Lowell. However, without concrete evidence, these theories remained just that, speculations. For the Badger family, each passing year without answers was a painful reminder of their loss. Despite the challenges, the investigation remained open, with detectives committed to bringing Lowell's killers to justice, no matter how long it took. Finally, during the early 2024, a significant breakthrough emerged. The key development came when new evidence and witness testimonies led the Indiana State Police to re-examine certain aspects of the case. Over the years, investigators had meticulously documented every interview, every tip, and every piece of information that had come their way. As the case was reviewed with fresh eyes, certain details began to stand out, details that had perhaps been overlooked or were not fully understood in the early stages of the investigation. The breakthrough hinged on a combination of forensic analysis, new witness statements, and persistent detective work. One of the critical pieces of evidence was the identification of William Ray Grimes, a man with a criminal background who had been on law enforcement's radar for other offenses. Grimes, who was already incarcerated for an unrelated crime, was now linked to the burglary that resulted in Lowell Badger's death. On April 17, 2024, a grand jury was impaneled in Sullivan Superior Court to review the evidence against Grimes. The proceedings were conducted in secret as required by law, but the outcome was a pivotal moment in the case. After 6 days of testimony and evidence review, the grand jury issued a true bill, indicting Grimes on charges of murder, burglary, and conspiracy to commit burglary, 3 Class A felonies. This indictment marked the beginning of the legal process that would seek to hold Grimes accountable for his alleged role in Lowell Badger's death. Right after, the sentencing phase followed, where Grimes was given a lengthy prison sentence, ensuring that he would be held accountable for his role in Lowell Badger's death. Some witnesses described Grimes as having knowledge of the crime, while others pointed to inconsistencies in his statements about the events surrounding the murder. Nonetheless, the law enforcement officials, while cautious in their optimism, emphasized that the indictment was only the beginning of what could be a long legal process. Special Prosecutor Rob Roberts, who had been appointed to handle the case, reiterated the importance of continuing the investigation and encouraged anyone with additional information to come forward. The case, though no longer cold, still required careful handling to ensure that justice would be served in court. The $35,000 reward remained unclaimed, but its presence continued to motivate individuals to provide any information that might further strengthen the case against Grimes or lead to additional arrests. As the legal proceedings against Grimes began, the Indiana State Police and the special prosecutors assigned to the case continued their investigation with renewed vigor, leading to another major development just a few months later. On August 13, 2024, a second suspect, Richard D. Taft, was arrested and charged in connection with the murder of Lowell Badger. Taft, like Grimes, was already incarcerated at the time of his arrest, serving a sentence at the Michigan City Correctional Facility for an unrelated crime. The arrest warrant for Taft was issued by Sullivan Superior Court Judge Hugh Hunt, based on the evidence that had emerged during the ongoing investigation. Taft faced multiple charges, including murder and 2 counts of burglary resulting in bodily injury. His involvement in the case had been a subject of investigation for some time, with witnesses previously describing him as emotionally distraught in the months following Badger's murder. According to a probable cause affidavit, some witnesses noted that Taft had given conflicting accounts of what he knew about the crime, which raised suspicions about his involvement. The arrest of Taft added a new layer of complexity to the case. While the exact nature of his relationship with Grimes remained unclear, it was evident that the 2 men were somehow connected to the events that led to Lowell Badger's death. The legal proceedings would eventually seek to determine the roles each of them played in the crime, and whether others were involved as well. For the Badger family and the community, there was a mix of relief that another suspect was being held accountable and anxiety about what the upcoming trials might reveal. The possibility that more individuals could be involved in the crime kept the case in the public eye, as the community continued to seek full justice for Lowell. William Ray Grimes was the first to stand trial, facing charges of murder, burglary, and conspiracy to commit burglary. The prosecution's case against Grimes was built on a combination of witness testimonies, circumstantial evidence, and the inconsistencies in Grimes's statements over the years. The trial was emotionally charged, with the Badger family attending each day, seeking justice for Lowell. The community also followed the proceedings closely, with many hoping that the trial would bring a sense of closure after years of uncertainty. Following Grimes's conviction, attention turned to the trial of Richard D. Taft. Like Grimes, Taft faced charges of murder and burglary, with the prosecution aiming to prove that he was directly involved in the crime. The jury ultimately found Taft guilty of the charges, and like Grimes, he was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. The convictions of Grimes and Taft brought a measure of closure to the community, and especially to the Badger family, who had fought tirelessly to keep the case alive and to see justice served. They had finally achieved the justice they sought, but the loss of Lowell was a wound that would never fully heal. The trials and convictions, however, ensured that his memory would be honored, and that the efforts to seek justice were not in vain. But as the dust settles, deeper questions remain. Could this tragedy have been avoided, or was it an inevitable consequence of a brutal world? Did the lengthy investigation do justice to Lowell's memory, or were there moments where the truth might have been uncovered sooner? And looking forward, how can justice systems ensure that no family endures such a prolonged wait for answers? We invite you to reflect on these questions and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your insights are invaluable, and by participating, you help keep these important discussions alive. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into another compelling case.